You gonna join our wrap-up video today?
I guess that's a no. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Liz, and in today's video we're going to be doing my April reading wrap-up. I am so excited and also so shocked that we're already in May. It's May 1st when I'm filming this. I don't even know what I did in April. I did read books though, so let's chat about them. This month I was able to get to 11 books total, 3 of which were audiobooks and the rest I read physically. I had 2 5-star reads this month, guys. It was such a good reading month. Almost every single book that I read this month I really enjoyed, and that is not common. Like, that does not happen every month, and I'm so excited and happy to talk about them. The first book that I read this month was a 5-star read, guys. What a great way to start the month off, and that was Her Last Breath by Taylor Adams. Taylor Adams is one of my all-time favorite mystery thriller writers. Everything he puts out, I am obsessed with. To me, what makes it a good mystery thriller is if it makes me feel something. If I am also shocked by some of the twists and turns that happen. If it is making me feel anxious or stressed because I feel like I am in our character's shoes, then to me that feels like a successful thriller. I don't like cozy mysteries, really. Every once in a while I'm in the mood for one, but most of the time I want something that's high stakes, high suspense, something that's gonna keep me engaged from page 1 until the very end, and that was the case with this book. In this book, you're following 2 best friends who end up going caving together. It does kind of like a then and now timeline. You have your then timeline of them going into the caves, learning along the way how things quickly turn dangerous, and then your now timeline, we have one of the friends who made it out of the caves who's talking to a detective and trying to recount the events that transpired down in these caves. I really loved the storytelling because it really left me on the edge of my seat. It was just like constant action and me wondering and questioning what was happening, what had happened. I loved it. This gave me new anxieties that I was not prepared for. I don't think I will ever go caving, and I'm okay with that. I felt like I was in these caves with our characters. There's twists and turns. Some were predictable, but for the most part, I was not expecting, and it just had me hooked. I needed to know what was going to happen. I needed to know where our characters were going to end up. The next book I read, which was way more low stakes and more of a comfort read, was Steam by Shannon Garrity and Emily Holden, who illustrated. I am trying to slowly get more and more into graphic novels. I used to love them when I was in like middle school, and I feel like now I'm slowly getting back into it because I'm definitely a visual learner, and so seeing the images of our characters and seeing what they're going through is very helpful to me. I really enjoyed it. It was a very quick read, obviously, because it is shorter and it's graphic novel, so there's not as much dialogue that you're reading than you would in a typical novel. This story is following a humanoid who escapes from her lab that she was created in and decides to go undercover and kind of hide in plain sight as a barista at a local coffee shop. And while she's there, she meets our other main character, who is her coworker, and she is slowly starting to help matchmake the people around her. Her programming is to like solve problems, and to her, seeing people who have a crush on each other or just need to find love in their life is a problem. So she becomes a matchmaker, and it was so much fun. It was so wholesome and just a very sweet read. I also love that it was like a coffee shop was like our main setting, and I just loved our main character. She was just so sweet and down to earth and genuine, and all. She truly just wanted to help people, and it was really fun to read her story. The next book that I read, I actually did this one as an audiobook, and I'm so glad I did because the audio was done fantastically, and that is This Book Made Me Think of You by Libby Page. I was not expecting to love this book as much as I did. I went in thinking that this was gonna be a very sad and depressing read just based on what the book is about, but I was pleasantly surprised with how hopeful this book felt and how endearing and just sweet it ended up being. Our main character in this book, it is about, I think, 6 months after her husband passed away. She finds out on her birthday that her husband actually bought her at her local bookstore a year's worth of books. So every month she goes into this bookstore to pick up the book that he had personally picked out for her, along with a handwritten message that he did explaining why he chose the book for her. He knew he was dying. I believe he had cancer whenever he bought this gift for her. So he wrote all these messages knowing he wasn't going to be around when she eventually got this gift. And so that was the part that was really hard to read about because you get to see his messages every single month, but it was also so hopeful and just starting your life over, trying to refigure out your priorities and what you want in life. Him just wanting the best for her, wanting her to move on, because you start off and she is in the deep stages of grief, and getting to see her slowly come out of her shell again and finding joy in her life again was just so much fun and beautiful to read about. You also are getting another main character, so our bookshop owner. You're also also getting his perspective in a few chapters, which I really loved his perspective. He's just describing how he took over this bookstore from his father who passed away. So he also understands grief and losing someone you're really close to. And it explains like the hardships of owning a bookstore, like a small business that is slowly dying. Him trying to bring joy to people and like picking out books and recommending books to people, seeing the way their stories merged and intertwined throughout it was just so much fun. So it is broken up into each of the months of this book gift. I went in thinking it was gonna be super sad, but by the end I was crying happy tears. Like this was just so beautiful and well done. The next book that I read this month, this was actually the only book that I feel like I rated low, that I didn't really enjoy, and that is Sing the Night by Megan Jaragu Eccles. You guys know I butcher every single author name that I ever read. It is inspired by Phantom of the Opera. I was reading this for my fantasy book club that I'm in. I was just very disappointed. I was really excited about the concept, it being inspired by Phantom of the Opera, but I ended up just not enjoying it. I don't know. It's written to be new adult, but it felt like it was young adult. The writing was very lyrical and very pretty. There were some really fun and beautiful quotes that were in the story, but overall, I got bored. If I'm being so honest, I was really, really bored with this one. It was also mixing in some like darker themes, and then it felt young, so it was just such a weird mixture of themes and things all mashed together. Our main character, she is studying to become the High Mage of the King. This is a very cutthroat competition that she is in, and it involves using music as the magic system. So singing in like an opera fashion is how people are able to make like illusions and create this like magical thing that people are able to witness. And she makes a deal with this man who she discovers in the mirror, who offers to help her unlock this like darker magic that makes her more powerful. It involves blood sacrifice and things like that. Even after going to book club and talking about this book, I still don't have my thoughts in order with it because it felt so jumbled and also felt not fully fleshed out and finished. The next book I read this month was my second 5-star read, and that is Into the Blue by Emma Brody. This is blowing up right now, and for good reason. This is technically a love story that takes place over the course of like a whole decade. You are following our characters from the age of like juniors in high school up until they're like I think 30. It was so beautiful. I actually did this one as an audiobook and I loved the audio so much. Our main characters meet while they're in high school and they end up taking acting classes together, and as they are acting together they discover that they have a ton of chemistry on screen and they become really close, really good friends from it, and feelings develop. It is a second chance romance, so you start out with them in high school, something happens that takes them apart, and then it flash forwards years in the future when they're I think like mid-20s at this point, and they both get acting jobs on this sci-fi spin-off series that was one of their all-time favorite shows when they were younger. Basically think Star Trek. That's kind of what I was picturing while I was reading this. They rediscover their chemistry and there's things that are keeping them apart for good reason, so you discover that. It's heartbreaking, it's beautiful, it's hopeful, it's all of the feelings, and it is a longer, like thicker book. I feel like I flew through this because of how much I was enjoying it. This is my favorite romance that I have read in a long time. It felt like you had fully fleshed out characters and the way they were acting throughout the story made sense because you understand them. It's very character driven. Cannot recommend this enough. And then the next 3 books that I read, I actually read in a reading vlog, so if you want to see even more in-depth thoughts and feelings and then my reactions to reading these books, then you can definitely check out that video. The first book I read in that one is Reliquary by Hannah Whitten. This is her horror debut that comes out this upcoming August. I was so excited to read this book because if I know anything about Hannah Whitten is she knows how to write gothic, and I knew that her writing style was just gonna mesh so well with the horror genre. Our main character, it starts off where she discovers that her fiance had a brain aneurysm and died, and once she finds this news out, she gets a message from his family who live on this like private island estate. They invite her to the island for his wake, and she has never met them. When she gets there, she's trying to connect with them because she's always wanted a big family, and things slowly start to get weird and eerie. This book made me feel claustrophobic. It made me feel anxious. I don't know how Hannah Whitten did it, but she had me hooked. Once I reached, I think like page 120, I like binged the rest of it because I could not put it down. It's just a different style of horror than I'm used to. It did have some gore, which I don't typically like in horror, but I didn't mind it in this one. It made sense with what was happening with our characters. If you had like a rainy day in the summer, I feel like this would be such a good cozy read. Not that horror is cozy in any way. The next book I read in that same reading vlog is Mate by Ali Hazelwood. This is the companion novel to Bride, which I read a handful of years ago, and I really enjoyed Bride. So I was excited to read another book in that same universe. Our main character in this one, it's the best friend of our main character in Bride. So it's following Serena, I think is her name, and she is a half human, half werewolf hybrid. At the end of Bride, you find out that she has a mate. He is actually one of the alphas of a different wolf pack in the region. You're following her from the beginning of this book, her trying to figure out her lineage. She's trying to figure out who her parents were because she doesn't know who they are, and she's trying to figure out how her biology is even possible, and also trying to figure out the whole mate situation. She's learning how to be a werewolf at the same time. So it's a lot of her just like trying to figure out her life. And it was a fun time. You know, Ali Hazelwood, you guys know, has just the funniest, quirkiest characters. That was one thing though that did sort of bother me in this one, is our main character. She was constantly making jokes. Like almost every single sentence was a joke, but it made sense with her character. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings on that, but I still really enjoyed this book overall. I will read anything she writes. And the last book that I read in that reading vlog was The Dark Lord's Guide to Dating and Other War Crimes by Tiffany Hunt. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. If you are a fan of Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer, you would really enjoy this book. It is a spicier version of that, I will say that, but it did not take away from the story. I really enjoyed it. This story starts off with our main character, the Dark Lord, finding this artifact that's super powerful, but he discovers that he cannot use it unless he has this specific bloodline assisting him with it. So therefore he has to marry a lady of the land who is from this bloodline. If you can picture the scene from Shrek where Lord Farquaad is trying to pick a bride with his henchmen, that is literally the first chapter of this book. He ends up picking Lady Arabella, who he thinks is going to be this just very submissive, sweet, quiet wife. He is in for a rude awakening. He goes to kidnap her and discovers she is very feisty, very independent, and she is very strong. She will not put up with his crap. I loved their chemistry. I loved their banter. It was so much fun. I was laughing, kicking my feet, giggling, reading this book. It is, I think, going to be a duology. I know there's going to be a second book this upcoming fall. I will definitely be buying that, and I will definitely be reading it. The next book that I read this month was The Burning Side by Sarah DeMoff. This is her second release, I believe. Her first one was The Bright Years, which I did buy a copy of it because after reading this, I knew I needed to read another one of her books. And I've heard nothing but good things about The Bright Years, so I'm very excited to get into that one. This one is following a married couple. They're having dinner one night with their 2 kids, and the husband tells the wife he wants a divorce. And that same night, their house burns down and they lose all of their possessions. This then forces them to move in with her family while they're trying to figure out their house, trying to figure out what they're going to do next, if they're going to go through with the divorce, and try to see if there's even anything worth saving. It was such a beautiful story. You are getting kind of a then and now timeline. You're getting the present of them in this house, trying not to tell her family because they're still trying to work things out amongst themselves. So trying to keep quiet, and it's very tense. And then you're also going back in time to when they first met and when they fell in love, and like how they came to be at this point in their marriage. And at the same time, you're also getting a third POV, which is our main character's mother. She has her own storyline that you're also following, and I loved her chapters as well. They were so beautiful, so heartbreaking. It just really made me think of relationships and how complicated different relationships can be within your family, within your friends, within your spouse, and with your kids. And it was just so well done. The next book that I actually listened to as an audiobook pretty much the same time that I was reading The Burning Side was The Road to Tender Hearts by Annie Hartnett. I've heard so many great reviews about this book, and I was so excited to finally start listening to it. This is following I think he's in his 60s, a 60-year-old man who won the lottery, and he decides to go on a road trip across the country to meet up and rekindle with his high school crush. On this wild ride, he ends up bringing along one of his daughters, who he has a very rocky, intense relationship with, also his brother's grandkids, who he now has guardianship over, and brings them along for the ride, and a cat that can predict death. All of these things somehow created this just fun cast of characters. It is a mixture of dark humor with heartwarming moments as well. I really loved these characters. You get to understand how they all came to be at this point in their lives going on this road trip together. It was weirdly funny, and like learning about this cat and its origin, learning about these 2 orphans and their tragic story, and the way they all come together to be a family on this road trip was just so beautiful. I really loved it. It was so heartwarming, which it shouldn't be because there's a lot of tragic things that happen in this book, a lot of very unfortunate things. It's different than anything I've read. And the final book that I read this month was The Hunting Moon by Susan Dennard. This is book 2 in the Luminaries trilogy. I'm currently working working on book 3. I'm almost done with it, and I'm really enjoying this trilogy. It is a YA fantasy. In this world, our main character, she lives in this small town that's out in these woods, and every night these mists rise up in the woods, and from the mist these like nightmare creatures are hatched. The people in this town have to then go out and hunt the nightmares in order to protect the town. Our main character starts off in book 1. She and her family are outcasts, and in order to fix that and kind of be able to re-enter society, our main character ends up going through these hunters trials. She has to go out in the woods 3 separate times and do 3 separate tasks in order to be considered a hunter. And so that's pretty much all book 1 is about. Book 2, you get some crumbs at the end of book 1 that kind of lead into book 2, which this one is definitely more of a filler book. I will say book 3, a lot of the questions I had even from book 1 are starting to be answered, and so you get even more questions and like a little bit of clarity in book 2. You're just picking up where book 1 left off. The whole trilogy as a whole takes place over the course of a month, so it is all back to back to back. If you want something that's very fast paced and very bingeable, the series is a great one for that. If you're wanting something that's not like super high stakes, I don't know, it kind of is, because they are like putting their lives on the line hunting these nightmares. If you like YA fantasy, then I think you understand what I'm saying. It was just a fun time, and I really enjoy our characters. Our main character is very silly, very goofy, and also kind of a nerd, so it's just fun to be in her headspace and learning with her as she's going along and through these like the trial and error of just trying to survive in this society. Dun, 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 dun. And that is going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed my April reading wrap up. This was such a great reading month. I'm so happy with all of these books. I honestly don't know where they're going to go on my bookshelf, if I'm being so completely honest. This bookshelf is full. I'm going to have to do some tweaking. I might end up doing a video where I reconfigure and redo this whole bookshelf. I had so much fun reading this month. I'm really excited going into May. I do have a trip planned in May where I'm going on like a little reading retreat with some friends. Very excited for that and to get some more reading done. I'm so excited for the books that I'm reading this upcoming month. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in my next video. Happy reading. Bye.